We're gonna be talking about first up, Dalen, right off the bat, the Prince of Persia, the Lost Crown, or is it no? Is it Lost Crown? The Lost Crown or Lost Crown?
The Lost Crown.
If you look it up, Ubisoft is even confused, man. I know you're gonna look it up, but if like Ubisoft has it like on PlayStation or something like that, where it says Prince of Persia Lost Crown, they don't add the to it, but whatever, man.
It's Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
Tell that to Ubisoft and some of their official marketing. It's out there if you guys want to look it up. But
they need to read their own box art.
They don't even know. They're not even really sure. Dalen, I will start. Well, actually, you know what? 2 quick points. So I was gonna put up a review of this because I game tape solved it today. So I will put our quotes. I'll put your impressions of it on there. I'll quote you. I'll pull some quotes from you and I'll put the review up. But one of the quick things, like just a very quick impression. I just wanted to have some questions for you before we get into kind of what your impressions are. First and foremost, those graphics, they're a little rough, man. They're a little rough at first. They're pretty, they're artistic, and it runs perfectly on the Switch.
They have their own cartoonish.
But people were wondering how it runs on the Switch, and it runs perfect. And I can see why. I can see why it runs perfect on the Switch. It's right up. It feels. It's sort of like like mobile graphics. If like a mobile game is trying really hard, that's kind of how it looks like. I just want to get hard.
I mean, I don't blame you for saying that simply because of the lack of detail they put into some of the backgrounds in this game. Yeah. But you said that.
I just wanted to put the controversy out there right off the bat, But that being said, I played through it and they grew on me. They grew on me. Those graphics, they grow on you. But there's definitely like okay, they didn't put all the big budget into it, and it is like I believe it's a $50 game, so I can kind of don't fault it on that. And I will get to my review, kind of my final thoughts on it. But just the graphics, just when you start off, you're like, okay, this is interesting. Mobile graphics trying real hard. How about I have another question for you, Dalen. Does this game so far, maybe you can just kind of dip into your impressions already, but does it scratch that Sands of Time itch? Because that game is vaporware. They're not ever gonna give it to you.
Okay, so when you start out the game, it's not scratching that itch at all.
Yeah.
But as you get further into the game, it starts to feel more and more like Prince of Persia. That's my thing for this game, is that when you start out the game, it just feels like a Metroidvania with a guy with some swords. But as you gain powers and they start bringing all the mystical, magical stuff of Mount Koth, it turns out to be a pretty good Prince of Persia adaptation. You still get all the traps that are getting thrown at you. You got to make sure you're jumping just right to make it through some of these locations.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, you can tell where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
You have those moments.
Yeah, you're right, man. I think it takes its time. It's not a super long game. It still takes you a few hours to beat, but I definitely agree with you that it takes its time to dole out the moves that you want. Like especially I think it was like it was getting to a point. I mean, I'll say a little bit more right now when I kind of officially review it and whatnot. But it was one of those things where I was thinking, I was like, am I gonna quit this game? Is this game getting a little boring? Then you get the double jump about like halfway through the game. I'm like, really? Why is it taking so long for this double jump to happen? Right? So I think it's one of those things where like it does take a little while to dole out some of the powers and some of the abilities, but there are a lot of them. There's a plenty.
Once you get every time you get a bigger ability, the game sucks you back in. Because the moment I got my air dash, I was like, yep, back in it.
Yeah. It's you get your air dash and everything, but it's a lot of it's more story. Right, more story and more. Is it more combat focused than Sands of Time? Because Sands of Time was a lot of movement, a lot of puzzles.
Yes.
Right.
So for the Sands of Time, there were very specific ways to kill enemies, and this one, it's not as specific. It's a lot of just beat up the enemy, and if they turn yellow, block. But other than that, it's not as technical as Sands of Time's enemies are, but they have a lot of different types of enemies in this one, so you end up having to change up your strategy anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Dalen, any more thoughts? How far are you into it? Like maybe hours wise, or try to not to be too.
Well, I don't know your definition of it takes a couple of hours to beat, because I played that game for like 5 hours, and maybe I'm halfway
not a
through
couple.
it.
No, not a couple, but you're entering 10, 12 hours, I would say.
No, I'm more like 5-6 hours.
Okay, all right. So do you not use the guided? Do you use the guided or no?
I do not use the guided. So when you start the game, they tell you about the map that you will get throughout the game, because it's very Metroidvania in that fashion that you can actually open up a world map, and you could choose to either have it be exploration mode where they put nothing on your map, you have to go discover everything, or you can put guided mode where it tells you where things are and you don't get question marks. You just know where it's at that point. I put mine on exploration mode. I assume, Carlos, that you put yours on guided because you did not want to do it.
No. On Metroidvanias, on the Metroidvania specifically, I do the not guided. I want to see, like, trying to get to all the nooks and crannies until about 5 or 6 hours into this game. Like, you know what? Fuck that shit, man. Put guided on. Please just tell me where to go. This is definitely one of those games that, by the way, you need patience if you want to play it that way. But I do like that they give you the option of, if you don't want to play it that way, if you want, like, critical path and just get to the points, they'll point them out. You still will get your ass beat, though, if you're not powerful enough. If you don't have powers to get to where you need to go. But I about halfway through, man, I was like, whatever, I'm just trying to beat this game, and I clicked on guided, and it was a beautiful thing, man. Because you will explore areas where you're like, I can't get there, and I'm like, that's great if you have 20 hours, and maybe I do, but I don't want to. I don't want to do that to my life. Dalen, anything else before I kind of I have some final thoughts on the game, real quick.
There was actually a moment where I had the realization. Then my homie was actually watching me play the game, and he had the realization. When you're doing the story, every so often you run across other characters in the game, and they just kind of show up. They jump down from the sky, and they are just there. And then they're finished talking to you, and then they jump back up into the sky. I'm like, where are you going? How did you get to where you're going? You just jumped through the ceiling. What is happening with this story? At least in Castlevania and in Metroid, they actually run off through a door and you don't know where they went. Nah, these characters, they bounce, they just fly. Yeah. How come they're not doing this in the first place? They're just flying all over this castle.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's is that it, Dalen, or any other?
So far, that's the only thing that's really actually bothered me. Other than that, the game has been pretty fine to me.
Yeah, for me, man, it's I know I wanted to start off with the controversy of the graphics, but like I did mention, they kind of grow on you, man, and they start getting pretty damn good, and you start getting those little Dragon Ball Z moves. Those Dragon Ball Z moves during the bosses. Look, this game, Prince of Persia, the Lost Crown, if you will, I believe that's the name of it. It's definitely it's a throwback, as you've been mentioning the whole time. It's a Metroidvania that kind of takes you back into the 2D plane. The graphics aren't as great, but it is sharp. It does control beautifully. The traversal is kind of great. At first, you're kind of like, I don't know if he doesn't run that well or whatever it is. But then you get your dashes, you get your double jumps, and it's all pretty good. I know the internet was making a big deal out of the memory shards, Dalen. I don't know if you're in exploration mode for sure. You want to drop those memory shards because like, I couldn't get over there. But now that I have my moves, I can go back to that. But
I gotta start using those more. I keep forgetting to use them, and I'll put like a marker instead of a memory shard. I had 16 of those things, there you go. And I didn't use any of them. I'm like, what did I put this icon here for? That memory shard takes a picture of the entire screen. Why am I not using that?
Yeah, so it's one of those things that there's a lot of cool things that happen in this game, and even like the accessibility options, like you said, like the older games didn't have guided versus exploration mode. You just needed to deal with exploration mode. So the fact that they kind of added that in, and like I said, look, if you have the time, you get some joy out of being lost and banging your head against the wall for a little while, go ahead. Exploration mode is like, oh damn, I couldn't open that thing. Maybe in a little while I can go back to it. But there's a lot of good things to it. The combat, of course, the L2 parry is pretty nice. The story is very lore-y and very jargony, Dalen, which I don't know, I guess maybe you enjoy. But to me, it's like, all right, man, I get it. It's a nice enough story. It's pretty heavy on the story, heavy on the combat. I will say this, man. Going through these boss battles, it's like it forces me. I think I've mentioned it before, but when you critical path, the problem with that though is that you get to these bosses, you're not powerful enough. Well, this is one of those games where it forces you to like, I need to go get a better health pack. I need to get like better health potions.
I need more potions.
Something needs to happen, right? But it's all very doable. Even on the normal difficulty, I found that I try to like beat down on the bosses. I was like this close, but it makes you feel like so powerful and so competent. I guess when you're fighting these bosses, that
maybe
it's pretty
confident.
That
maybe
is pretty
confident.
No, I know what I said. It makes you feel competent. All right, so when you level up and you actually beat them, you actually give an exhale of like, damn, I really did beat that boss. And it kind of, like I said, the graphics aren't too amazing, but they're very stylized. They're very stylistic, and they look great. When you beat the bosses, you get the final hit. You get that sense of like the old school SNES games where like, I just need to do the right thing. I just need to do the right thing. You need to not make any mistakes to beat these bosses. Is what's going on in this game.
You know what you remind me of? Years ago, I used to love playing Mega Man X games, like all of them, and Mega Man X2. Almost every single boss, you see that life draining on the boss bar, but you also see your life draining. You know you're about to die.
Yeah.
Last moment, all the platforms are gone. You got one bullet left. You jumped in the air. You shoot the boss. You land on the spikes, but you're alive.
That is pretty much every boss in this game. That's pretty. You feel like you're like on you're watching the boss's bar. You're watching your own, and you're like, I'm like, oh no, can I make it? And a lot of times I didn't make it because I was like too nervous, man. I was too nervous to make a mistake. So, but yeah, look, I'll put a little review up there. I think I don't know how we've done it before. Do we officially? I'm kind of in between an 8 and an 8.5, man. I'm an 8 and an 8.5 in this game because it's pretty damn good. It's an excellent game. It's good enough that where I'm thinking like usually we send games back, Dalen. This will kind of play into what we're talking about next. But for example, a Tekken and Infinite Wealth, the Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is coming out in the next couple days. I have to send things back or keep things on GameFly. Thank you for the sponsorship, GameFly. Let's get that sponsorship going. So I was like sending Avatar back, but Lost Crown, I might keep it to keep exploring on it. So I think that should give you an indication of how good the game is. But definitely play it if you guys haven't. I'm sure people were already kind of like on the internet when it first came out. People were kind of blowing it up, but it's definitely a good one. Dalen,
I could say this: if you like Metroid Dread, and I hope you liked Metroid Dread, you will like this game.
I will say, I mean, I think Metroid Dread was like my number 1 or number 2 or something like that the last couple years. Dread is something else, man. Nintendo.
Dread is obviously something else, but I'm saying in comparison, if you like Dread, you will like this game.
Yeah, they definitely didn't do exploration versus guide. Although Dread kind of guides you, right? It tells you, okay, go. This is the next one.
No, it doesn't guide you. Heck no, it doesn't guide you.
That's what I was thinking too. Like it didn't have guided, but for some reason it was just better. It was just, but the Lost Crown is good. The Lost Crown is good.
For you, Carlos, the thing is that you're a huge fan of Metroid games, period. Maybe, so you understood that lore a lot better. For me, I'm a fan of Prince of Persia. Though this particular Prince of Persia has literally nothing to do with any other Prince of Persia, I still enjoy it.
You start having time moves and all this other stuff. You start getting more stuff. Then that's why I'm like, I wonder when you get further in. I don't want to spoil it, but you start getting more like, okay, Sands of Time. Okay, so
let me leave a body double.
For now though, Metroid Dread or Lost Crown. I know you're only about maybe a quarter of a way through. Metroid Dread or Lost Crown?
Are you asking me which one's better?
Come on, Dalen. Of course. Which one, man?
For me, Lost Crown, man. Oh, damn. It's good. No, for me, it's actually
Look at this. Metroid's over here. Hold on.
I also have the what are those called?
Little
things
amiibos?
that you put on. Yeah, I got the amiibos.
I think you gave me this one.
Probably. I don't know.
Hold on. Right there.
I've also got an amiibo of it. And yes, I enjoyed Dread, but I'm just too much of a fan of Prince of Persia. And this one I feel is going to last longer than Metroid Dread. I felt like Metroid Dread was very short. And I 100%ed it without having to do anything. I didn't have to look nothing up or anything.
Dread is nice, man. It was an super excellent game. Better than Lost Crown, but Lost Crown is good though. Lost Crown is up there. Lost Crown is definitely up there.